Welcome in, everybody, to the post-game flagship podcast reacts to Texas's 20-10 victory at Arkansas. And Eric, this one was a little bit head-scratching, to be quite honest, because it seemed like the Texas Longhorns had a really good offensive game plan put together, and they had deep ball opportunities. They had short ball opportunities in the passing game against the 124th ranked pass defense in college football. That belongs to Arkansas. But Eric, thank heavens for the Texas defense, literally from start to finish in this one, because Texas only led 10-0 at halftime. It probably should have been more like 31-0. I'm not kidding. But the Texas defense hung in there. And then it turned into a 13-10 game. The offense finally came through. And then the defense, Alfred Collins with a huge play to force a fumble. Michael Taft jumps on it. And the Texas offense is able to run out the final 6:55 of this game to hang on to a 20-10 win at Arkansas, the second lowest or fewest points scored by Texas this season, second only to their 30-15 loss to Georgia. Eric, your thoughts?
Chip, it's funny. You talked about, and I guess we'll do a little good cop, bad cop here today, right? I'll be the good cop as far as the defense. You talk about Texas's inability to make things happen on the offensive side of the ball for the majority of four quarters. Of course, they got the points when it mattered, and Steve Sarkisian in his postgame said that the offense kind of picked up in the second half. But I'm going to flip it to the defensive side of the ball. Arkansas had not been held scoreless in the first half at any point this year. And you're talking about an offense that averaged 33 points per game, right around the top third of FBS football teams in scoring. Well, you saw today what Texas's defense did to Arkansas. A season low in points, a season low in yards in the first half. The 263 of memory serves correctly off the top of my head here, yards that Texas allowed, the fewest that Texas has allowed in SEC play. This was a standout defensive performance up and down the board, especially in the first half, Chip, when Texas's offense really was still trying to find their footing, right? They had the 10-0 lead, but the defense really held things together. Let's start with Jahdae Barron. Of course, he had the first quarter interception. Jalen Gilbo, as Jahdae mentioned in the postgame, played that coverage perfectly. It was man coverage. Jahdae was kind of running alongside the play, was able to be the right spot in the right time, as he is always in the right spot at the right time for the duration of his career. Comes down with the interception, probably really hammering home, Chip, his candidacy for the Thorpe Award, who, ironically enough, the representation for the Thorpe Award happened to be in the house here today. So hopefully he made a strong statement for that award. And then the second quarter to close the first half, his sack of Taylon Green really thwarts any opportunity. Sam Pittman trying to get some offense there, trying to run some offense late in the half. His sack of Taylon Green really thwarts any opportunity there. So you can start there, go along with guys who were here, Chip, 3 years ago when Texas lost 40-21 in Arkansas. Barron Sorrell, Alfred Collins. Alfred Collins to start the week said that Arkansas wanted to kick our ass, and they did kick our ass. Well, as I wrote in my postgame, in my game story, it was Texas's defense that did the kicking of Arkansas's rear end. AC, it was a career high for AC. Apologies. Barron had a season high, but a career high in tackles for Alfred Collins, 7 tackles. He gets the forced fumble that pretty much ends any opportunity of Arkansas trying to make a comeback. And what was impressive about that play, Chip, is we hear so much about Texas's culture, right? Well, this was kind of a play in a way that kind of reminded you of the Jordan Whittington, Xavier Worthy play from last year, right? AC's on a pass rush. That's a 12-yard completion that goes to a receiver. He manages to retreat backwards, punch the ball out of C.J. Brown's hands. It lands in the hands of Michael Taft, and that pretty much ends the game for Arkansas. And then last but not least, on that drive to start that drive, Barron Sorrell starts that drive with a sack that puts Arkansas behind the chains. It was a season high, as I mentioned, career high for AC, season high 7 tackles for Barron Sorrell in this game. So this all in all, up and down the board, 8 tackles for Mookie Taft, who led Texas defensively. Just a standout performance up and down the board for Texas, Chip.
Yeah, 6 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. The defense was outstanding in this game. And as you mentioned, Jahdae Barron, the guy makes a play every game that matters. This was his 4th interception. It came early. Alfred Collins had the first of the 6 sacks.
Yeah.
It came on first down. 2 plays later, Colin Simmons added a 10-yard sack on 3rd down. It got going. Trey Moore with another big play in this game. He's starting to string games together with big plays. Andrew Makuba had a big pass breakup. And so, defensively, you don't worry about this team, but you do worry about them breaking. They're up 10-zip, and they're looking for life from the offense. The game should have been out of hand. At halftime, it wasn't. And then Arkansas gets a rhythm. They're talented. As you mentioned, they're one of the top offenses in all of FBS, the 11th rated pass offense in all of FBS. Talon Green is a dangerous runner. Jaquindon Jackson wanted payback. So, yeah, Arkansas put together a couple nice drives, one to a touchdown, one to a field goal. You held them to 10 points, for God's sake. The defense did its job, and this is where we'll transition over to the Texas offense, because I thought Steve Sarkisian, I know people are upset about his game plan in the first half. I thought they had opportunities in the first half, especially deep ball opportunities, even against the 3-high safety look that Arkansas played. There were a couple of post routes that broke free that Quinn Ewers missed badly. And then, there was a pass into the end zone to Matthew Golden where he's interfered with, Eric, but the pass was so far off target, the officials deemed it uncatchable. So they kept their flags in their pocket. He had Gunnar Helm breaking, on a slant right toward the goal line, would have been a 1st and goal, and he throws it in the dirt. And you're just like, okay, where's the Quinn Ewers that was 19 of 27 for 333 yards and 5 touchdowns last week against Florida and had a 35-0 lead at halftime? Because those opportunities were there. Then Arkansas's defense adjusts at halftime. Now it's harder for the Texas offense to get those same kind of deep ball looks. But they were able to, ham and egg it together when they absolutely had to have it. So if we're looking at the positives, okay, they didn't turn it over at all for only the 2nd game this season. Michigan was the other one. They only had 2 penalties in this game. Both were on the offense, which is sort of standard, but neither one of those derailed drives. So that's a positive. You had some, big time players step up and make big time plays when they had to have the touchdown drive after Arkansas cuts it to 13-10. And then, of course, they run out the final 6:55 with a 14-play drive that included a 3rd and 13 conversion by Ewers on a pass to Silas Bolden, and a 4th and 2 run by Ewers. He runs for 3 yards, converts the first down, enables Texas to run out the clock. I know that's a lot, but give me your thoughts, Eric, about the good, the bad, and the ugly as it relates to the Texas offense.
Yeah, Chip. The bad/ugly, and you kind of touched on it, right? We talked about in last week's postgame, did this offense turn a corner, right? We all were optimistic that they had. Well, Chip, let's just call a spade, right? This is no disrespect to Arkansas's defense, but they are who they are. They're, again, as you talked about, 124th in the nation in pass defense. You would expect an offense that is as talented and loaded with playmakers and weapons like Texas is to have more success. That's step 1. Step 2, Chip, we can toy around with this hypothetical and then we'll find out in 7 days, right? If Texas's offense comes out and performs the way they did today against Arkansas, they might be held scoreless versus Kentucky. right? There's one thing you can say about the Wildcats. They have talented defensive players, and they play well defensively. Now, the flip side to that is they they really have set offensive football back 100 years. So Texas's defense is going to have no problem against Mark Stoops' offense. But if you're trying to project forward as far as them turning the corner, not the type of offensive momentum that you would like to see heading into the final 2 weeks. Of course, a very crucial stretch of games for Texas as they control their own destiny in the SEC title hunt. That's one. What I will say is this, and I'm someone who's been very critical, I would say analytical, but some would say critical of Texas's run game. Well, when they needed it, they had it. They did find some success in the first half, but was really impressed with the way they managed to close things out in the second half. And someone noted when I tweeted this out that Texas, all things considered, they have 6 of the 9 games this year, or leading up to this game, I should say. Obviously, this is the 10th game. In 6 of the 9 games that Texas had played, they'd rushed for more yards in the second half than they had in the first. And someone pointed out, rightfully so, I would say, give a shout, I think it was Nash on Twitter, I'll give a shout to them, that, some of those games, or a lot of those games, with Texas playing with a lead, right? A substantial lead. Well, I would say this. If you take a look at what they did at Michigan, at Vandy, and now against Arkansas, tough teams, tough environments, 2 SEC teams, they found ways to close games out with the run. So that, to me, is that's impressive. Jaden Blue bounces back. Only thing is that fumble that he was asked post-game, did you will that fumble to go out of bounds? And Jaden laughed and said, no, that was God that sent that thing out of bounds. Because, Chip, that would have been not quite a backbreaker because the Texas defense was playing so well, but just really it would have been, a sour taste for Texas's offense to get that kind of chunk play from Blue, and then all of a sudden it gets knocked out, right? So the combination of him and Quintravian Wisener, let me go and pull up the final numbers here as far as what they had together, Chip, if you have it.
And, of course, the fumble you're referencing came at the end of a 28-yard run by Jaden Blue, and Arkansas punches it out. The ball slowly rolls out of bounds right before an Arkansas defender can try to corral it at the 14, and that was the drive that was the Matt Golden 1-yard touchdown pass from Quinn Ewers that gave them the 20-10 lead. So
that's essentially sealed the game, Chip.
Sealed the game.
And just really quick, the numbers here for Blue: 14 carries for 83 yards, a 28-yarder is long, gives him a 5.9-yard average for the day. Quintravian Wisener, 59 tough yards, Chip. Anytime you get 59 on 17 carries, those are tough yards. He had a long of 11, so 16 carries for 48 yards without that 11-yard run. So that aside, that to me, like I said, Chip, I think we're talking about just the offense here for a second. That was the good. They found ways to find rushing yards when needed, but there's no ignoring the obvious totality of the performance for Texas, the offensive inefficiency. It seems week to week. And Chip, at this point in the year, you don't want to be week to week, right? You want to be trending upwards as far as the way you're doing things, Chip.
Yeah, and it looked like, you mentioned it, it looked like Quinn Ewers was back to being Quinn Ewers last week. He throws for 5 touchdowns, 300 yards, 333 yards. First time all year he's thrown for 300 yards. We saw Jackson Dart of Ole Miss come to Fayetteville in the rain even and destroy this Arkansas defense, throw for 500-plus yards and 6 touchdowns. And it was there in the first half of this game for Quinn Ewers today, but it didn't happen. He was not sharp. And so, after the game, everyone's talking to him about how he did come through on that touchdown drive with the Jaden Blue fumble. Quinn Ewers was 3 of 3 passing. He threw a 20-yard comeback to Isaiah Bond to start that drive. Why they don't run that play more, I have no idea. That play is open all the time. But Sark likes to catch his receivers in stride where they can make yards after catch. Sometimes it's, if you've got a guy that fast, just throw the damn dig route. But, Quinn was 3 of 3 on that drive. And as we said, the Texas offense put together a 14-play drive to run out the final 6:55. And I do think there was a positive for the Texas running game today. Both Blue and Wisener were averaging more than 4.5 yards per carry in the first half. That's a change Sometimes it's like 1.8 yards and then, they blow it up in the second half. They were pretty consistently in, positive situations, both the running backs. Now, there were 2 sacks of Quinn Ewers that were ugly. But I thought the running game, I thought Sark was committed to it. He stayed with it. And that was a positive. And Jarek Gibson, again, 2 big carries for 5 yards, one on 4th down and the other on 3rd down. And he converted both of them. So I thought there were some positives there. But Quinn, this was a really concerning performance, honestly. He even had a swing pass that he threw where he could see the Arkansas defender bearing down on Quintravian Wisner, and he should have thrown it out of bounds because Wisner caught it and then got dropped for an 8-yard loss. And then on the next play, Blue gets dropped for a 4-yard loss, and suddenly they're out of field goal range. Eric, it seemed like they were kind of inventing ways to screw up the passing game. And I say all that, and he was only he was 15 of 23 in the first half. But those 8 misses were huge. One was the pass to Golden in the end zone. 2 other balls were wide open post routes that he missed. So I don't want to sound like I'm, the Grim Reaper here and not acknowledging the positives of the Texas offense. They came through when they had to. But Eric, I'm going to ask you this. Yeah. Was this enough for the College Football Playoff Committee to leave Texas at number 3 in the rankings?
Chip, the honest answer is probably no, right? That's the honest answer. And listen, we have this conversation a lot. I see it on social media, on Twitter. Well, Texas hasn't played anybody, so on and so forth. I would posit this, right? And I've said this multiple times. Texas can't control that Michigan is Michigan. I'm going to refrain from calling them names. That's step 1. Step 2, I do think Texas deserves credit for it. They're the only SEC team that has not played or will not play an FCS team this year. Right. So for whatever that's worth, and I know that might be not worth much in the eyes of the College Football Playoff Committee, who said, all right, well, we don't care about, your wins over, UTSA and Colorado State and Louisiana Monroe not being FCS games. I get that. Fine. And you want to be playing your best football in November. We've talked about that on our instant reaction and on the regular flagship on Wednesdays. You're only playing your best football this time of year to make a statement to the committee. Right. All things considered. And I think this is why Steve Sarkisian continues to lead with this. Not that this is out of the ordinary for Sark, Chip, but is maybe emphasizes it more. It's tough to win in the SEC. It's tough to win on the road, right? I think those things matter. No disrespect, and I'll pass it back to you on this, Chip. You get ready to close it up. No disrespect to the 2023 Florida State team. The wins that Texas are earning in conference play are not quite the wins that Florida State had in the SEC, right? I think they're in the ACC. I think those are better and more impressive wins, Chip. But to your point, it's a very fair question as to whether they did enough today to leave themselves at 3 in the eyes of the committee.
Right, and that's, to me, every phase of the team came through. The defense certainly pulled its end of the load. The running game pulled its end of the load. The special teams were fine. They tried to block a couple punts, got close. The problem for me is that it's Quinn Ewers. He's the guy who's supposed to be the alpha tip of the spear player on this team. He's the one who's supposed to be leading this team even more so than the defense because he's the 3rd-year starter. He's the guy that everyone was, he was the Heisman favorite coming into the season. And we've talked over and over again about how, the injury, he wasn't quite right. But, against Florida, now he's back to the way he was against Michigan. And we were expecting him to keep elevating, and he didn't. And there was opportunity for him to elevate. That, to me, is the concerning thing because he's healthy. What's going on? Because you get that performance in their next road game at A&M, you're done. So, again, there's time. But I'm going to be very interested to see what the College Football Playoff Committee makes of this win. It is a rivalry game. Arkansas's got a good offense. We'll see. But I leave here with the utmost respect for this Texas defense because they are coming through. And Alfred Collins and Jahdae Barron Albert Collins is having an unbelievable year. If Texas fans don't see this, he's doing what Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat did last year in elevating his game to the point where he's going to be, he's working himself into a high draft pick here. He's got the measurables for sure. And Johnny Barons, you talked about it, Eric, he's in the mix for the Thorpe Award. And what a great decision to come back and get it done. A lot of positives. Quinn Ewers, we gotta see how he bounces back. I mean, I know he had the big finish to the game, which was huge, but it left me unsatisfied, Eric. On your level of concern, what would you put it at with Quinn Ewers?
Listen, I've been squarely in Quinn Ewers' camp, and maybe I'm just being stubborn, right? I would put it at a 5, and the only reason I'm putting it at a 5, that's not dismissing what we saw out there today. The reason I'm putting it at a 5 is this is a third-year starting quarterback who's played a ton of football, and you do expect at this point in his career not to kind of have the seesaw play. With that being said, I still think, I've said it at the beginning of the year, I'll say it now, Texas can win a national championship with Quinn Ewers. And I believe, I had to pause and then think for a second, Chip, I'll say it wholeheartedly. Texas's best chance to win a national championship is with number 3 under center.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you gotta elevate that level of play. All right, it was a win. That's all that matters because they're still in the mix. We'll see what the College Football Playoff Committee thinks of this performance. But Eric, great stuff. Everybody get over to horns247.com to read all of the coverage. Please like and subscribe the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel. And make sure you're tuned in. Well, like and subscribe the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel so that you get notifications whenever Eric and I are going live. And we appreciate it. We are signing off from Fayetteville, Arkansas, where Texas wins 20-10 with some gutsy fourth quarter play. Not sure it needed to come down to that, but it did, and they delivered. And for Eric Henry, I am Chip Brown. Until next time, stay safe and keep the faith.